Then my last gift from the Army was a cancer diagnosis on top of all of that, right? And it was by far the most stressful time, I think, ever in my life, to where, I mean, that's really where I stopped caring about nutrition.
Here's something nobody tells you about leaving the military. You spend 20 years being told exactly who you are, your rank, your unit, your mission. Every morning there's a reason to be sharp. And then one day, you turn in your ID card and the structure that held everything together, it just goes away. You tell yourself you're fine. You've got a good job, a good paycheck, a new career. But the guy looking back at you in the mirror doesn't move like he used to. He doesn't sleep like he used to. Doesn't feel like the operator he was trained to be. And there's nobody there to fix it. No PT formation, no physical, no standard you have to meet anymore. So you let it slide. That's not aging, that's rotting. And there's a difference. I'm Zach Armstrong, and this is no hype, just standards. And for over 20 years, I've helped high-performing men realign body, mind, and spirit without the burnout. Today, I'm sitting down with Matt Petraitis. Matt is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel who spent his career flying Kiowa Warriors and Apache attack helicopters, commanding cavalry units in some of the highest pressure environments on the planet. He deployed multiple squadrons to multiple combat zones. He led the transition of entire unit from one aircraft platform to another, blending 3 different aviation cultures into one single fighting force. This is a guy who operated at the edge, and then he retired, moved into the defense industry, kept performing at work, but the body and the mind started paying the bill for all those years of grinding. And unlike the military, nobody was there to hold him accountable for fixing it. He had to make that decision for himself. If this conversation hits home for you, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us to reach as many people who need to hear these stories. All right, let's get into it. Hey, so thanks for joining us, Matt. We really appreciate it. So let's go back to the beginning. What made you want to fly helicopters in the Army?
Oh, a great question, right? I mean, when I was coming out of high school, going into college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, right? Probably like a lot of other people too, right? Didn't really know. And then I initially went down the road. I was going to go into some type of law enforcement type thing. That's what I chose, criminal justice. Mm-hmm. And then one day I was on campus my freshman year, and I saw the ROTC guys doing their thing, and I knew a couple of them, and so I started doing that. Started hanging around with that as first just as an elective in school, and then one day we did this training exercises where the helicopters came in and they flew us around, and I'm like, oh, this is all right. This is pretty cool, right? And I just kind of go with it. And then a few years into the program, you got to start picking what you do. And so I said, okay, well, hey, let's try this. I really got the aviation bug in me at that point. You know what I mean? And I said, okay, if I have an opportunity to do it, let's try. And, fortunately I did get picked up, and from a guy who my family has zero aviation background in it. Like, I'm the first person that's ever done any of this. And from day one, just absolutely fell in love with it. And so, here I am 20 something years later after starting that, and it's still a passion.
Yeah, still flying on the side,
yep.
Right? Even though you're out of the industry, so to speak. Yep. And so you flew multiple 2 aircrafts in the Army, as well as in charge of multiple squadrons at troop level. For those who aren't familiar with that, how does that look on a day-to-day basis for you?
Sure. Yeah. So if you take one of the last higher level jobs that I had as a squadron commander, you're in charge of an organization that's got 550 people in it. At that point, you had about 24 aircraft. At that point, there were 864 Apaches. We had some UAVs, and that's also that everybody focuses on the aircraft, but that's all your ground support equipment, your trucks, your maintenance. Mm-hmm. I mean everything. It's a probably $1.5 billion organization if you put it all together. And so every day, as the commander, my ultimate job is preparing the unit to go do its mission, right? Mm-hmm. You have your tasks that you have to go. But really the bulk of my job is really 2 things. One was, at this point I'm in the Army 21 years. So I should be taking my experience and passing that down, right, for folks to learn. But then also empowering my junior leaders, right? Because it's just not me in charge of everything, right? I've got, lower level commanders, I've got senior staffers. Exactly, right? Yeah. So I've got to enable them and teach them and mentor them to go do the mission, and then, kind of know when to step in and know when to not step in, right? Kind of thing.
Little dance.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, but yeah, I mean, your daily work is everything dealing from what's the maintenance status of the aircraft to who's next on promotion lists to we're deploying in 3 months. Are we ready for that? I mean, it's anything and everything.
All right. Out of that, what was the one you despised the most, or you did not look forward to?
I would say 100% dental stats. What are the dental stats?
The check marks.
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
Yep. All right. How about this? You deployed, your squadron to Korea when it was honestly, tense situations with Korea at that point. What was kind of the mental, weight that you carried, not just for you, but your squadron, your troops, everybody, when you went into that kind of environment?
Sure. Yeah. So that was back in the fall of 2017. And so it was a normally scheduled rotation. There effectively was a mission gap in Korea for an Apache squadron. So the Army rotated units through, and we happened to be one of them at that time. And at that time, yeah, that was at a period of increased kind of tensions between North, South Korea, U.S., and the allies in that area. But, it really kind of paled in comparison to any Iraq and Afghanistan deployment in terms of, kind of threat, worry of, kind of hostile activities, combat, things like that. I would say that, sure, that's always in the back of your mind. But I would say the biggest thing that nothing really kept me up at night, but the thing that I worried about and really had to focus on is I had, just transitioned. The unit used to be a Kara Warrior unit a year ago, and now it's an Apache unit. New pilots, new aircraft, new ways of doing things. And the bulk of experience in the unit, to include mine, was all CONUS in the US or flying in the Middle East, right? I had very few people that are used to flying in an environment like Korea with the mountains, the hills, coldest place I've ever been, ever. Construction wires that are 2,000 feet tall for aviation. I know you jet guys, like, whatever, you don't care about that, but for us that live 1,000 feet and below, that's some of the most hazardous territory you could fly in, right? And then on top of that, I mean, let's face it, right? It's a Apache cavalry squadron. These guys want to be duking it out in the Middle East, right? They want to be going where the action is, and so keeping everybody focused, keeping them trained, and trying to keep them safe, while they're out there flying. And then, by the way, there is this threat to the north that, occasionally would kind of spark up, and you get your alerts and you get your folks together, kind of thing. So you always had that looming.
Did you find that more challenging, or the Middle East more challenging? And I not from the aspect of the combat, but like you said, what I heard there was mishap prevention. Mm-hmm. Mishaps are obviously a big problem in the aviation world, and prevention of it, and with what you said, complacency
can be, right? Yeah, can be. Yeah. So I mean, if you kind of remove the combat from the equation, I would say Korea was definitely more challenging because, anybody who's done deployments, to the Middle East, it's, you go there for your, 6-month year or whatever it is. And it's, you've got your mission window, you wake up, you do your mission, you come home, you do, you know what I mean? Like your life is living that schedule, right? Whereas it was kind of a hybrid. We were doing normal garrison type things in Korea, but also doing mission exercises. And oh, by the way, when you go up north, that's where you train. That's where, if anything broke out, that's where the fighting would be. So it's like you could literally train where, if potentially ever anything happened. So, and then you had the challenges too of like home life back home, because the soldiers are away from their families and all the things that come with that, right? So,
and I would say, for the people who don't understand too, is when you're deployed into the Middle East, like, you go to work and then you come back and you're just there. But in Korea, that's probably not the case, right? You also had people being able to go out in town, do things on the side where that's not. And so then it adds to it, which would lead me to my next question is, the reason I bring up Korea more so than the Middle East is when you start talking about being able to hold yourself to standards, when you're in that environment in the Middle East, it's pretty easy. Like, you go fly, you come back, you work out, you eat the same stuff. It's just rinse and repeat. But when you're in a dynamic like that, how was it that you were able, what kind of physical standards did you hold yourself to, as well as the people that worked for you? And how hard was that?
No, great question, because you have the opportunity to, to go off the rails, right? Kind of thing, right? You do. Oh, 100%, right? 100%. No, it's a great question. So, what we did is we went in with a mentality of like, okay, here's a standard of what you should be doing, right, for the Army, right? Your PT test, your height, weight, all those type of things. But then what we had to do was kind of slowly let the rope out a little bit in terms of like, so like first 30 days we were there, no drinking, no going out on the town, no anything. You should be linked up with, kind of a sponsor from the unit that we were replacing. They can kind of show you around, right? And then, okay, the next month, okay, all right, now go out, have fun, do the thing. But, there's curfews that were kind of not even, they were from higher than us, right?
Yeah, Central curfew.
Yeah, they were. I think it was 1 o'clock in the
Okay,
morning.
a little better than midnight then.
Yeah. But bottom line is you had a group of folks that were good with, hey, big boy rules, I can do this and take care of it. And then some others that you had to put a little bit more, had a little bit more bumpers around them to keep them, in track. But physical fitness and staying, it's very, the deal. It's very easy to, hey, I'm working on my 10th day in a row. You know what I mean? I'm working long hours. So the first thing that gets cut is going to the gym.
Yep.
Or,
Always.
if you're eating at the DFAC all the time, well, DFACs don't always have the greatest food. You know what I mean?
You don't say.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, exactly. Right?
For those that don't know, DFAC is basically the military chow hall.
Right. Yeah. And although they had the best breakfast special in the world, and then, okay, well, hey, you get there, the DFAC's closed. Well, then, the Burger King's the only thing open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so trying to keep nutrition and really a good workout regime up was a huge challenge for myself too. I gained weight while I was over there.
That was my next question. So were you one of the guys who kept performing at a high level, not just professionally, but physically as well? Or do you find that kind of slipped as well?
So for me, I think it kind of slipped because number one, so I always prided myself as that, even though, I was a lieutenant colonel at that point in charge of the squadron. So I had to, number one, keep up with everybody. Number one, I had to be the old man that kept up with the 20-year-olds, right?
Yeah, I don't understand. There's a lot. Majority of the military is 18 to 24 years old.
Right. The youngins, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be out there, right in front of the formation, doing all the things, right? And then as an aviator, well, I've got to be. I'm the senior aviator in the squadron, so I've got to be as good as the most experienced warrant officer that I have, right?
And that's good luck.
Good luck with that, right? And so, I prided myself on being on the flight schedule as much as I was in the meeting schedule at the brigade, because I wanted to be down on the flight line doing the things. And so that starts grinding on you after a while. You know what I mean?
Because
it does.
Capacity level, right?
Mm-hmm.
You only have so many hours in a day. And, without saying it exactly, you were wanting to set the standard for the unit, right?
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
the way it was. Kind of walk me through your decision to retire. After 2 decades at that kind of level, how do you step away, or how hard was it? What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, sure. So it was. It was difficult in terms of stepping away from the mission and the people. It was huge. I just had kind of made. I went out as squadron commander. My next job after that, I went to what we call Forces Command, which has changed names now, but and effectively was in the office that really looked over all of Army aviation, right? Not so much the special operations guys, but most of the conventional stuff. And I was basically on a training and assessment team. Not a sexy job. It's not what a lot of people want, but going into it was able to enact some change, and really I got a chance to really see the Army aviation from like every angle, which was super rewarding in a sense. And maybe enact just a little bit of change for the better, I think, to help units. But anyway, it was kind of like, okay, where am I going from here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could continue being, the staff officer for the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. But, now I'm mid-40s, and I'm like, is that really what I want to do? And I had reached a point of fulfillment. What I did was like, hey, I really felt professionally fulfilled. I worked with great people, with great equipment, doing great missions, and I just didn't, I didn't see it getting any better. You know what I mean? So, and for me at the time, it was, okay, let's move on to something else.
Right. And speaking of that, you moved into the defense industry for General Atomics with the Great Eagle program. On paper, that sounds like a great landing. How was that for you?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that also the aspect is a lot of people that aren't military won't understand that transition is sometimes a little more difficult, walking away from being called a lieutenant colonel or a commander into Matt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the transition was actually one of the toughest points. And I had actually, before General Atomics, for a year, worked for a company up in Ohio. Great company. They're a small business. I think they had 80, 90 people at that point. And they had a ton of brilliant PhDs, but they didn't have a lot of PMs to manage them on there. And they were a defense company too. And so, one of my best friends worked for the company. Okay, I'll come up, I'll give it a shot. And like I said, great company, great everything. But I was in a 6-month window of retiring. I retired. I moved to Ohio. I started.
Moved out.
Yeah, exactly. I was there for a year. Nothing against it, but a little cold, a little chilly up there. So in that, I retired. I moved. I started a job that I'd never been a PM before, in a company that I'd never worked with before, on projects that I never worked with before because it was very Air Force related.
So you're subject matter expert off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. New guy all over again. FNG, like all over. Right. So, and at the exact same time, my mom was retiring. We're trying to sell off her houses. We're trying to, move her into her new, glorious retirement thing. So I got all that going on. Then at the same time, I had the bright idea of starting a MBA program. Right. So now I'm doing all that. And then my last gift from the Army was a cancer diagnosis on top of all of that. Right. So now I'm juggling all of that in this massive state of transition. And it was by far the most stressful time, I think, ever in my life, to where, I mean, that's really where I stopped caring about nutrition, working out. I gained probably 20, 30 pounds. You know what I mean? It just, all the stress just got to me. You know what I mean?
I don't think people can understand fully or grasp when you're in that like tornado or in that storm. You get so focused on other things that you forget what it's doing to your body. And
totally.
It takes the sleep, like waking up, like especially with something as heavy as cancer, right? Waking up, what's the first thing you're thinking about?
Yeah.
And how hard is it to go back to sleep, right? What does that do in toll after day after day after day? And speaking of that, like when you went through that, like how hard was it to deal with that diagnosis and then trying to overcome that?
So it was tricky. Luckily through the military, you've seen a lot of adversity, right? And you kind of learn how to deal with it. Over the years, you kind of refine it. And so, don't get me wrong, not easy. It's still something I kind of deal with today, but it was basically I'm going to worry about it when I have to worry about it type thing, right? So you go to the doctor, you get your plan of what you're going to do. And, for me, for example, it was, hey, we're going to monitor this for a little while, right? So in one sense, you can kind of put it out of your mind, but it's always there. You know what I mean? And so, but I just really tried to come up, I try to give as much positive thought to it, for example, like, okay, hey, in that instance, we caught an illness early. Okay, that's good. It's not great being on the scoreboard, but okay, we caught it early, right? And so, okay, well, my next checkup's in 6 months. Well, I can't really do anything between now and 6 months except try to be healthy, right? They tell you to be the best patient you can be. Which at that point I wasn't, right? Because I was, I'm a stress eater, right? I mean, that's my thing, right? So, but okay, hey, look, it's there, but I got to compartmentalize it because I gotta keep moving on. Right? So, and then, okay, about a month out, let's start worrying about it again. Yeah.
Okay. Did you find that once you kind of started to get past that it did bring up, once you got through it and go, hey, I faced some serious adversity health-wise there. And I know this from our first conversation. So how much more of a focus did you go, hey, the best way to approach longevity or to overcome those things is, like you said, not the best patient, but to be the healthiest version of myself. How was that switch to transition and go, I need to focus on my health here?
Okay. I remember, not the exact day, but I remember the situation. So I travel a lot through work and just personally because I like to travel. And I remember I was in my hotel room, I think on a work trip. I woke up, I'm kind of doing, you're just kind of messing around, playing with your phone, whatever. And you're going to be 50 next year. Holy shit. When did that happen? Right. I didn't mind 30 was fine. 40 was fine. But it's like, damn, I'm going to be 50 next year. Yeah. And it literally was like, okay. And, this was, I think I was, late 48 at that time. And, at that point I was 40 pounds heavier. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to the gym. I'd mess around trying to eat healthy, but not serious, kind of thing. Right. And I just remember being like, I'm going to be 50. I got to do something. Right. And so, pretty much at that point, that's when I started making, lifestyle changes, you know what I mean? And that's about a year before you and I linked up, you know what I mean?
Right.
And the big thing was like, okay, start cleaning up what you eat, you know what I mean? Cut back on alcohol, getting more sleep, all the things. Right. But that was the wake up moment.
Yeah. And you would say, cause like in the Army, you have a reason to stay in shape. And then when you transition out, you don't, obviously you had multiple things on top of it right then. And so your turning point was like, oh shit, I'm about to be 50. I need to hold myself to standards again.
Yeah.
This is what's hard for to understand. And, not just me. And I think, but when we're in that, that funnel or whatever it is, it's hard for us to notice. But when we come out of it and look at it from a, macro view, and what was I doing? Why was I not helping myself by working on? Because you're talking about a man of yourself that's hold yourself to standards. We talked about it each way through your career, and you've held others to standards.
Yep.
But now you've let your standards drop, and it's hard to say why, right? And then when you want to pull yourself out of it, that first step's usually the hardest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And can you kind of walk me through a typical day of like, when you started that and then you maybe started with me, how that kind of started shaping how you kind of viewed it and how you wanted to approach it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So step one was, okay, I got to do something, right? So let's do it. And it's on me. At the end of the day, I don't blame anybody. It's not like, oh, it was too big. I mean, yeah, I was busy and I was stressed and all that, but at the end of the day, it's on you, right? Like, what are you doing
100%.
about it, right? So I have actually one of those chalkboard walls at home, and I have some quotes on it that just daily quotes. And one of them is, what are you doing about it? Right.
I like that.
What are you doing about it? Right. So, and so it's okay. What am I gonna do? So I just started researching, and a couple of friends of mine are kind of real health conscious folks. They're not like workout folks, but they're health conscious. And so I said, okay. And I started getting into fasting, right? Part of it for weight loss, but then part of it for the body reset, the autophagy for, things, the scientific portion of it. So I said, okay, I could start with that. Let me just do that. And then I could start focusing, for example, in the Army, hey, I want my 2-mile run time to be X. So I got to train for X, right? Or I want to lose 5 pounds. I got to do this. So I said, okay, hey, I want to do a 1-day fast. I want to do intermittent fasting for a week, or then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks. And my goal was to take a task and turn it into a lifestyle.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I like that. Yeah. And when, you notice that, hey, I'm getting there, and you at some point had to go, all right, I'm getting there, but I'm not getting to where I want to. Like, what was that? What was that realization for you? Like, or I'm hitting a plateau. What made you hit there? What did you find?
No, perfect. Right. So I did kind of my own thing for a while, partially probably out of laziness. Like, okay, hey, I'm taking care of what I eat, but I see the gym, like, maybe I don't want to do that. Right. But then I was doing this for probably about 8-9 months. I saw some good results, but then it was like, number one, I kind of plateaued. And then number two, I mean, just common sense, like, well, I'm not going to the gym, and I'm not really paying attention to specific nutrition. I'm getting older. It's harder to do this. So kind of started plateauing, and also just kind of common sense. If I need to be more holistic about this, it just can't be about, doing a fasting program. And so I started looking around at different programs online for effectively like a health coach, right? I went to a bunch of my local gyms, but they're all great, but they're trainers, right? They're going to show me the right way to do, an exercise or something, but they don't do nutrition. They don't do lifestyle. They don't, you know what I mean? They don't do that. And that's really what I was looking for. And so I did a bunch of research, a bunch of local stuff, a bunch of stuff online, throughout the country. And then when I saw your website, hey, let me give this a shot, man. Let me give it, I liked kind of what you were talking about in terms of like, holistic lifestyle, making a change, setting yourself to standards and holding on to them. Right. And so I knew I had the drive to do it. I just didn't know exactly what things I should be hitting. Right. And so that's why I called
the
you.
The levers to pull.
Yeah.
And then for us aviators, like the checklist, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Speaking of that, speaking of military guys, and I would equate it just not military guys, but anybody who's a high level professional executive, especially in the mills, we have a hard time admitting we need help, or we might need more. What helped bring you to that realization, or what made you say, hey, I'm actually going to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. It was probably just a bit of humility. You know what I mean? Like, you've been trying to do this for a while, and like, yeah, you've seen some results, but you're not going the exact direction you want to go. And going all the way back to military years, right? Whether I was trying to do better on a test, be a better pilot, be whatever, you sought out someone who was smarter than you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And did that. And I did that many times on the flip side as kind of the senior guy helping develop and mentor. But I learned early on that, like, sometimes you got to put pride aside.
It's funny, right? That humility thing, we don't realize sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We look at it as a weakness, especially when we're younger.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when we get older, we realize that there's so much more you can learn, and not just this aspect, but anything in life. When we sit there and listen to somebody who maybe knows a little bit more than us,
absolutely,
or is looking to actually help, not get something from us. And for me, it took a long time in life to reach humility at that level. And I think a lot of guys struggle with that.
Yeah, it's the thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing for sure. When you first reached out, what were you expecting?
I'll be honest with you. I didn't really know what to expect. I'll be honest with you. I didn't, and then I think the phone call I got was one of your guys that had like this South African accent, you know what I mean? And he was, I think he said he was like a power lifter or something. And I was like, I don't know if that's what I'm looking for, man. And he goes, no, that's just what I do, kind of thing. So, You know, I'll tell you what I was hoping it wasn't. I was hoping it wasn't going to be one of these cheesy, like, you know, you pay me 10 grand a year and you can come out to the retreat and, you know, this is going to be a whole lifestyle thing for you. Like, that's not what I was looking for, you know?
Gym bro stuff.
Yeah, right. You know, although if you are in the Huntsville area, I am looking for a gym bro because I just do it by myself. But
it sends me the videos.
yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. I send the videos, right? Talk about humility when he talks how bad my form is. So, but yeah, I was hoping it was going to be what it was. And what I was hoping it wasn't at all, man. You guys have a really good program here where it's like, okay, because my thing is I travel a lot. I'm on the go. You're like, dude, what do you like? You know, you even see my schedule. And so it's very hard to keep nutrition and fitness and a kind of a stable, healthy lifestyle when you're bouncing around all the time. Right. And so some programs that I looked into, they couldn't do it. You had to be a homebody. You had to be home all the time. It just doesn't fit. You know what I mean? So
no, that's helpful. When you hit that point and you made a decision and you decided, hey, it's worth the investment. Let's talk about what happens, because I think a lot of guys watch right now are standing there at the same kind of crossroads. When we first sat down and we went through like kind of like what it was going to look like, and we went through, hey, we'll cover the, you know, we do travel and things like that. What was your initial impression?
I liked it. I did, you know. I think when I did the first phone call, you know, just that initial phone call back, I guess I was a little hesitant just because you never know what someone's trying to call and pitch with, right? You just don't know, right? So, but, you know, I would say after about like the first, 5 minutes, like, okay, this sounds ballpark of what I'm looking for. Let's schedule a call with Zach. And then when we started talking, yeah, I mean, I like the idea of, hey, the schedule's adjustable, right? And I'm going to help you with, everybody knows if you travel for business, you travel a lot, right? Trying to maintain nutrition when you're trying to eat out all the time is really, really hard, right? So, hey, we're going to help you with that, right? We're going to help you with the workouts. We're going to adjust things so that it adapts to your lifestyle. That was pretty huge for me.
Yeah, and I think that's, I don't think people think it's as doable as it is, right? It's not even like big adjustments. It's this, and you get smarter when you're doing it, right? We all do as human beings, like, oh crap, I just ate like this many calories, or I had two IPAs and then I ate this and I just consumed 1,000 calories.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't realize it until you start entering it or putting it down. And then as someone who is a aviator, I found most of us are kind of data nerds. How do you think like the data and how we incorporate data into the system, how does that work for you, and what does that mean for you?
So I really like it because it's tangible. I can look at it, right? So, for example, my friends kind of make fun of me because I'm like glued to it, almost like social media, you know what I mean? Because I'm inputting my stuff, my exercises, what I ate and everything. And so number one, the data helps me see, number one, just every day, what am I doing and what kind of habits and trends I'm doing, right? Do I need to change something? Am I meeting my goals, right? Am I hitting the points I should, right? But then overall, when you start looking at trends, right? Because the trend's the important stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it helps, you can start really seeing like, okay, hey, why am I missing 3 workouts a week, right? Is there a root cause behind that? Or am I just being lazy that week, right? And then do I need to change something, right? Do I need to prepare differently? Do I need something like that, right? So the data to me is very helpful because that data really turns into information that I can use to stay on track.
It's ingestible. It's something that you can take. I know some of these answers. What was the hardest part of your first couple of weeks?
Leg day. No, I'm just
everybody's man. That's everybody.
But I love to hate leg day, and I hate to love leg day. No, I would say just the biggest first part was number one. It was really 2-parter. One is like, okay, I got to read labels on food.
I tell people all the time. I was like, they're like, oh, it's gonna be so hard. I was like, no. What's gonna happen is in 2 months from now, you're gonna pick up a can and like, this thing's got like 50 grams of sugar. I'm not eating this.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't do that to you. You do it to yourself because you start realizing what like our industry is.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Like
it's garbage. Yeah.
You walk down an aisle now and it's hot words. We always do this with marketing. The hot word right now is protein. You walk down an aisle, everything says protein on it. But if you pick that thing up and this protein substance, and it'll be like 10 grams of protein, but then like 50 grams of carb. Yeah. Like I think was it Larry's and something cookie? That's what they are. They say protein cookies, but if you look at them, it's like a 1-to-5 ratio.
Oh yeah, or the net protein or whatever they're calling it now. Yeah, right? So no, that was, but that was just getting into good habit, right? And then, having to focus your nutrition in your meals and how do I eat and when do I eat and all that. And then the other part is, just be honest, I started this a few months before I turned 50, and just going back to the gym was just your body is just like, what are you doing? Come on. So, and I think I told you when I started, I was like, hey, I'm starting out kind of light just because I know myself. If I start heavy, I'm going to hurt myself. And I mean, we were talking right before the podcast, this is kind of hurting, that's kind of hurting,
Me too.
but it's but that's probably been the toughest part. But I mean, I look at it as a challenge. Like, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep up with the young kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I gotta keep going, man.
Always. And that's, and I've said it on here before, like, I'm not joking when I'm telling people I'm going to beat my grandkids in a dead ass sprint at 70.
Yeah.
I'm going to, because I still sprint to the day. Now I can't outrun one of my children in the mile run anymore, but he's pretty quick. But I can still out sprint him.
There you go.
Walk me through kind of what has changed physically, and then we'll touch on how it helped him mentally. So it's a two-part question. How do you think you started changing physically, and then from a mental aspect on it?
Yeah, so on the physical side of it, I mean, it was, probably the first month or so was you kind of really don't notice anything except, honestly, you're just sore a lot, doing your stuff. But, probably I would say after about a month, give it like 4 or 6 weeks kind of thing, and noticed that number one, physically between the nutrition and exercising, dropping the weight. I've got one of those health scales, right? So it I guess as accurate as they can be, okay, so some weight's coming off, the body fat's coming off a little bit, but I kind of noticed that, like, okay, the gym's not so hard anymore. You know what I mean? My joints are adjusted. I'm putting on some weight, and just generally overall felt better. Just general wake up in the morning, and feel better than I did before. Right. Yeah. So, little physical manifestation, but also just you're generally feeling better. I don't dread the gym now. Now I'm like, okay, like if I'm missing the gym, I'm like, ah, shit, what I mean? Especially since we changed workouts, he crushes the legs. He crushes legs. So, so on the physical side, I overall just feel better. You know what I mean? It's just a general overall feel better, feel stronger. With the weight drop, I still run. I don't run as much as I used to, but stuff doesn't hurt as much anymore because I don't have the weight, or because I am working out more, the muscles are stronger. Right. And then, overall, say kind of like the mental clarity, the focus, things like that. It is so much better, right? Because, I'm number one, I've cut out, not perfect, but a lot of crap foods around. I'm eating healthier foods.
And it's a natural progression. Yeah. Like you said, you start paying attention to labels, because when you start inputting food, you're like, I didn't realize. And it's like, it's not that the labels don't tell you, it's just that the front of the label tells you a different story than when you turn it around and look at the actual nutritional information. Oh yeah. It's obviously marketed that way on a reason. What about from the mental aspect? How did that kind of help energy, your focus, competing with the 20-year-olds again?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so I would say, energy's getting there, right? I kind of pride myself on, like, hey, I go to the gym, I work out, I'm tired kind of thing. So like I got to pick when I measure my energy, I guess. But overall, hey, when I'm at work this is the ultimate test, Tuesday at 2:30 in the afternoon, what's my energy level, right? And it's way better than it was before. You know what I mean? It also, now that I've got to prepare and kind of, it's not just I wake up and go to work, but I got to make sure I got meals prepped for the day, or I got to figure out, if I'm not prepping, where am I eating and where's my gym time, and did I pack my bag? Like, so now I'm a lot more focused on what you would probably call the mundane portions of life. You know what I mean? I'm more focused through the day of what I got to do.
Right.
And then that just transcends into work, right? Okay, what tasks do I got to do at work?
I don't think people understand how it can easily, like, when you make these certain area changes in your life, you just think, oh, I'm just changing that aspect of my life. But it always changes everything in life. I tell people this all the time, like, and I don't think they believe me. I'm like, hey man, you're gonna, like, whenever I talk to them, like, I always talk about physical attributes. I'm like, don't worry about physical attributes. Trust me. Like, in a year from now, you're gonna be like, who was this person? Or, but it goes out without, when you improve on the physical aspect, the mental aspect is always the one that you start noticing as a bigger picture thing. Like, it's not like your aptitude grows, but your awareness or your clarity grows. And so, like, do you find yourself performing better at work now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would definitely say I'm more focused, number one. And number two, it's, I don't know, more energy, I guess you could say, but it's also, I don't know, because I've got to prepare, because I just don't look at preparing as like, what do I got to do at home? Now I'm more focused on what I got to do at work and how I have to execute those tasks. So yeah, 100%.
Okay. Let's get back to the one question that I really want to, like, kind of talk about is, the standard thing that we said. You've always held yourself to a standard through your career, and then you felt like you kind of let your standard slip. And when we say that, and I feel like when I talk to a lot of guys, I say a lot of men like yourself who are high achievers, who've done a lot in their lives, who are very impressive men. You don't compare yourself to another 50-year-old. I seriously doubt it. You still compare yourself to the 20-year-olds you were competing against, and you still hold yourself to that standard, and you feel like you let your standard drop below that. And I feel like most of the guys I talk to, that's the same way they are. They hold themselves to a standard that they've let drop. Do you feel like you've now started recreating that standard and holding yourself to that standard?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say I've hit it back yet, for sure. But no, the ultimate goal is really two things. One is absolutely there's, you're always looking at, okay, the younger, I remember, for example, when I first joined the Army, the PT score was, I forget what it was, but then like 5 years later, they changed it and the standards got less, like you had to do less push-ups, less sit-ups, and a slower run. But I always held it to that older standard because that was to me, the higher standard. Same thing, younger folks. I'll be honest, when I'm in the gym now and I'm watching, younger guys going through, I'm watching what they're doing, and okay, I'm not going to try and do the weight they're doing, but like, I'm going to try to keep up with them. Right. If I'm out running, I don't know if anybody else does this. If I go out for a run, like let's say I'm doing a 10K or a 10 miler or just a whatever, I usually will find one person that I absolutely irrationally hate when I run and try to beat them. Right. Like that's just what I do. Right. But yeah, working back to that, absolutely working back to a standard that is much, much higher than what your average American 50-year-old should be. Like that's my goal.
So if there's a guy out there that was kind of sitting in your same shoes a year ago, and maybe he's telling himself to do this later instead of now, that this is part of getting older, what would you tell him?
So, well, I would say 100% do it, right? The first step is always going to be the hardest one. It's picking up the phone. It's hitting the contact me button, to get the phone call or whatever. And there's on that quote board, I'd butcher it if I say it in Latin, but there's this Latin expression that is, it's later than you think. Right. And I'll tell you right now, it's later than you think. And it really is,
every day.
It really is, hey, I'll have next month. That's how I got myself kind of into this spot anyway. It was, hey, I just moved. I need to, I just started this new job out of the Army. And so I need to focus on that. I'll go to the gym later. Right. And then I started, going back to school. So like, well, when I got home, then I'll worry about it later because I got to do my homework, and I'll do it another day. I'll do it another day. Well, that day may never come,
No,
it just might not. Right. And so, tomorrow's not guaranteed at all. And
Ever.
it's only getting later. So, once you get past that first month, you're going to look and go, why didn't I do this? Like, why didn't I do this sooner? Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before we wrap up, I want to do some rapid fire.
Okay.
The rules are simple. No thinking, no explanations.
Okay.
First answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Okay.
All right. I know you just moved to Alabama not too long ago. So Auburn or Roll Tide?
Oh boy. First answer is whatever I can do to incite either one of them.
Oh, okay. All right. What is the best military service?
Best military service, Army for sure. Yep.
Who produces the best military aviators?
Army Aviation.
All right, be honest. Navy or Army? Who flies the cooler missions?
Oh man, by far the Army, man. We got Apaches. We're down low. Come on, man.
All right.
Hey, when Maverick bailed, who picked him up? A helicopter pilot,
Okay.
right? There you go. Yeah.
All right. Who complains more, pilots or maintainers?
Pilots probably.
Oh yeah, every time, right?
Every time.
We're drama queens.
Yeah. If you're a maintainer, by the way, God bless you, keeping the aircraft going, man. Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Harder lifestyle, Apache Squadron Command or civilian desk job?
Oh, Apache Squadron Commander.
Okay. What's tougher, combat stress or losing your identity after the uniform comes off?
I would say losing identity. You know,
it's a little tougher, right? What's the biggest lies guys tell themselves after leaving the military?
Oh, biggest lies after leaving the military. Oh man, that's a really good one. Biggest lie. I would say that they can keep living the lifestyle, right? That they can, they can keep that, whether it's lifestyle, fulfillment, job satisfaction, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like you gotta close that chapter and start. Man, you can't. If you're one of those guys that all you want to do is keep talking about the past and try to live in that past,
That's where you stay at.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time, man. We can't keep living in the 20s. You got to move on. What's the first thing that slips when a man stops holding himself accountable and to his standards?
First thing that slips is probably your daily discipline, like your overall daily discipline. You know what I mean? Every little things from, showing up on time to remembering the things you should be doing to that translates out into, are you being the best friend, the best father, the best husband, the best whatever, I think, you know what I mean? So if you start letting your standards lax, how you start treating other people is going to start laxing.
Every time.
Well.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there. What's worse, being out of shape or pretending you're okay with it?
Oh man, jeez. I would say probably pretending you're okay with it because
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
And you're like,
Yeah, it's because when you start lying to yourself, that's
Absolutely.
that's a different dynamic, man.
Yep. Yeah.
If a guy is listening, feels stuck, but hasn't taken action, what is the one word he needs to hear?
One word, do it.
That's a 2 word.
Yeah,
That's an armyism.
Yeah. I say now.
Now.
Do it now, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. And last one. When you look in the mirror now, are you closer to the man you were or the man you expect yourself to be?
Expect spells to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. Well, hey, I want to thank you for coming on today.
Absolutely, man. It's great to be here.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Here's what I want you to take away from this conversation. Matt spent over 2 decades operating at the highest level the military has to offer. He commanded attack helicopter squadrons. He deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea. He led over 500 soldiers, and he stepped out of that world. The same thing that happened to him happens to so many men. The body started to slow down. The mind started to fog up, and the guy in the mirror didn't match the operator he knew he was. But here is the thing. He did not accept this as the new normal. He decided he was worth the investment. He made a decision, showed up, and did the work. Not for anyone else, for himself. Because he refused to let the standard slip any further. And the results speak for themselves. Not just on the scale or in the blood panel, but how he performs at work, how he moves through the day, and how he carries himself. He got back to the guy he knew he was supposed to see. If that story sounds familiar, if you're just a guy who's producing results at work, but know you're running on fumes, if you've been telling yourself you got to do this later, this episode was for you. If this conversation meant something to you, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And share it with someone who needs to hear it. You know who the guy is. Send him this episode. Remember, you cannot lead others if you're running on empty. But it starts with leading yourself. Empower your body and invest in yourself. I'm Zach Armstrong. I'll see you next week.